Welcome to the CTOX podcast. This is the place to be if you're a technology leader navigating the fractional CTO landscape. I'm Marisa Brassfield, joined by Lior Weinstein, the visionary behind CTOX.
Here, we cut through the noise to deliver actionable insights for CTOs at every stage, whether you're looking at your first five-figure client or actively building systems to scale.
That's right. You'll learn principles, not just tactics, to transform your technical expertise into a thriving fractional practice. Let's dig in. Today, Lior and I are discussing the importance of a menu of offerings that fractional CTOs can use with their clients. And in our last podcast, we talked about the importance of a niche, and you shared a great story about sitting down at a restaurant with these amazing chefs, and then the server comes out and asks, "What do you want? We can make anything you want." And then we felt, all of us listening, that paradox of choice and what happens when you've got unlimited options and we can't be everything to everybody. But inside that, you really seeded the importance of having a menu of your offerings to make it really clear. And so today I want to dive into that a little bit more. And so what are the core elements of a great menu for fractional CTOs?
So first of all, it's important for people to understand the basic value of a menu is to give your clients some kind of a scaffolding on how to think about you, right? We talked about these issues where you might meet somebody and you have a great conversation and you feel like they're trusting you and they're liking you and you don't understand why are they never returning your call or kind of reaching out to you when they have a problem. Sometimes you even learn that they hired somebody else. And the reason is because they can't think about you. So that's one of the biggest value propositions of a menu. The second is the fact that it can actually unlock a relationship. It gives you a way, if someone, to convert interest into dollars. So we recommend that people start with a simple menu with 3 core offerings. So 2 recurring revenue items and 1 a standalone item. So recurring revenue items we like to frame as one like an engaged level CTO. This basically means you're the de facto CTO of the company. You're accountable, responsible for all technology activities in the companies. That means hiring, firing, vendor selection, budgeting, maybe go to board meetings and so on and so forth. Basically the same thing like a full-time CTO, but for a fraction of the cost. The other menu items we recommend is an advisory type CTO. So this is where you're not accountable, responsible for a roadmap. You're there to talk to them maybe, 1 or 2 hours every week, every other week, more reactive. You are intimate with the roadmap and the parties in the company, so you can be you give effective advice. But this is really translates to something like, 5 hours, 10 hours a month versus double, triple that with the engaged relationship. And the nice thing about having both of them is that having a high touch and a lower touch gives flexibility to your client. So they don't have to immediately have the sticker shock and commit to a high price, but they can ramp with a lower price. There's other advantages that we'll talk about as well. The last thing is like a standalone item. So a good standalone item we recommend is something like a half-day strategy session, right? So this is where, they answer some questions before you come in. You might sit with them for 4 hours, 8 hours in person, on Zoom, doesn't really matter. You vacuum all the information you have about the company and their goals and their resources, and you come up with a project plan for them, basically a solution to accomplish all of their business goals in the context of technology. And that can be priced something like, $5,000, $7,500. Some people even sell it for $10,000. But once you have that strategy session, you're basically giving an opportunity for people to kind of taste the relationship with you. It's also an opportunity for you to taste the relationship with them. One of the side benefit I really like about that is that it helps avoid kind of time vampires and people just calling you, "Hey, can I just call you? Can you just come to a meeting?" So it makes sure that you're establishing the relationship with people that have a problem that you can solve for money. So way better.
Super interesting. Let's dig into pricing a little bit. So in our first episode, we talked about the importance of not charging hourly, and I heard you share that just now in some of the tiers. Let's talk into pricing psychology, because you mentioned at the 2 recurring levels, there's one engaged where you are the CTO of the business, and then one where you're a step removed. That's the advisor level. And there's some interesting psychology in each of those retainer levels.
Yeah. So if you think about your book of business also as a fractional CTO, most people want to make that 500,000 a year, 40,000 a month. That's 5 to 8 clients. So you want to have really 3 engaged type clients, 3 or 4 advisor clients, and then have sort of a revolving door between those. So have a constant pipeline of potential clients as other clients roll off. The engaged type relationship, we normally recommend you price it at $10,000, $12,000 a month, sometimes even higher depending on the niche and the need. And that tracks for something like 5-10 hours a week. That's what we recommend. Now, when you're super efficient, that might even be 2 hours a week. But we really want you to be at that $250 an hour mark. And for some of our advanced CTOs, they escalate all the way to $800, $1,000 an hour. With the advisor, it's interesting. It's actually way more in an hourly rate. So advisory relationships, again, you're doing these calls 1 or 2 hours every week, every other week, but for something like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. And the range there kind of depends on your niche, your salesmanship, and also the commitment. You know, if somebody is just saying month to month, okay, they're going to pay a higher rate. But if somebody is willing to commit to 6 months, maybe even pay in advance, they get the benefit of a discount. So these are all things you can use when you're doing marketing and sales and try to convince somebody to work with you. There's an advantage on the low price and the high price items around oscillating between the two. I touched on that a little bit, which is, yeah, everybody wants normally people want the higher engaged relationship. I actually tell a lot of people, you know what, the nice thing about advisory is that it's much higher efficiency, so much higher yield. This is where you really can make, $800, $1,000 an hour, even more. But you need way more clients to hit your income goal, right? To hit that 40, 50, and of course, some people want to hit 7 figures. But it's way more efficient, way nicer. People start with the engage because they think that's the high dollars. What's nice about having the lower one, people originally think, oh, I'll start with the lower one and ramp up, which is absolutely true. You kind of start dating someone and then you're like, okay, this is good. Let's go. Let me take ownership and move on. But here's the reality. In many cases, you're going to get clients and they're going to pay you that 10, 12 a month. But after 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, everything is humming. Like if you did your job really well, and maybe that pain is now lowered on the client side. So before they think twice about your retainer, you can come in and say, hey, you know what? You don't need me as much. Let's just go down to $3,000 or $4,000 a month. And then you get to keep that $40,000, $50,000 a year in income as opposed to replacing that client from scratch. So as long as you can, now I said in other episodes, I don't like to talk about hours. I don't like positioning effort at all. It's all value. But when we talk about hours, the 5-10 hours a week or the 1 or 2, this is your problem. This is an efficiency issue that the best CTOs in our program are really good at that high leveraging relationship, high leverage engagements. But you get flexibility. You get flexibility to start low, go high, start high, go low, retain the revenue, and be very efficient with your time as you get better and better, especially if you're doing it within the same niche.
Yes, and life happens. So the hourly billing model gets quite dangerous. We've had a couple CTOs who've had health challenges themselves or a spouse or a dear family member, and they've had to step away. They still had the operational capacity and teamwork to keep delivering on the business needs. But there is this interesting optics relationship that happens. You touched on it a couple episodes ago, where when you're charging hourly, there's that temptation of presence and increasing presence as a factor of value, but that's not always the right signal.
No, and in fact, I like Lior, for example, I don't do standing meetings. I don't want people to get used to my time and my presence. I want them to enjoy the impact, enjoy the value that I bring. So all of my engagements and all of the way they experience me is in that context. And it's never in the context of, oh yeah, they expect Lior to be in this kind of sprint review meeting or this planning meetings. Because then they just expect my time and effort rather than all the impact that I bring in. So there's a lot of value, and of course there's just pure basic pricing. It's the classic, all these experiments of people drinking the exact same wine, like a $30 bottle of wine, but one, it has this $1,000 label, another one has the store kind of $30 label, and people, when they drink the $1,000 one, they start, being very poetic about it, right? But here's the reality. Price does create value, and the fact that you pitch a certain price for a certain amount of value or effort or presence actually elevates your value and makes people respect you more and make sure that their focus is value as well as your focus is value, because now you want to over deliver and be able to command that premium price.
Ooh, that's a great point. One of the big traps that those who are charging hourly run into is commoditization. And you start comparing apples to apples and you're a line item instead of a transformation, someone who is catalyzing and creating growth inside the business. And it's a minor distinction, but it's one that plays out every single day inside of leadership and executive teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that there aren't great hourly contracts to gain. I just don't want them. I think the benefit of the fractional CTO and any fractional executive really opportunity is to be able to design your lifestyle, decide what projects you want to engage with, what people you want to work with. The other thing about value-based pricing is that you can actually tie in upside, which with hourly, there's not happening, right? The expectation is time and material. You put in the effort, you're going to get paid, rather than you actually create impact and create value and you get paid. Because the positioning is like that from day one, then it also opens up the opportunities into making way more income and way more business opportunities, because the value frame is that at the beginning and not the effort frame.
Yes. There's one more component to our menu. You mentioned it, which is the standalone and this half-day strategy session. And this is a sneaky one on the menu because a lot of people will go for the retainer. But really, this is one that can be such a potent door opener, and also just a way to engage with the market, especially if you love giving workshops and it gives you energy to facilitate these team experiences. Would love to have you talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I love standalone menu items, and people do it in different ways. Like you can do it a generic one, like half-day strategy session, kind of let's figure out the technology roadmap, what you're missing, close the gaps, and so on. Some people do like pointed solutions, like they do an AI strategy or an AI agent strategy or a cyber strategy, whatever that is. What's nice about it is, one, like we said, it kills off the time vampires, which, as a technologist, you just get a lot of those. You get a lot of people just, hey, can you take a look at this? Can you come in for a day, for an hour? And usually I say, yeah, sure, here's my link. And the link, they have to pay, right? So it's a really good filter. The second one, I really want to make sure that I'm going to work with a team that I want to work with. What's nice about the strategy is, one, you see if they're serious, if they have a problem that's actually worth money. If they're not going to pay you $500 or $7,500 for a workshop, they're certainly not going to pay you 10 grand a month, right? So it makes sure that you're working with people that actually have a problem to solve. But here's the thing about that. Normally at the end of strategy sessions, one of two things generally happen. Either they're like, this was amazing, take the keys. Right? All the things you put on the board, can you just go ahead and do them? And then it's just an easy, smooth sailing into a retainer agreement, maybe a retainer with upside. But the other side also happens, which is like, you know what? This team needs therapy and I don't want to be a therapist. And it's amazing how common that result of a strategy is. Now, for people that are thinking, well, if they give me strategy and retainer, you can play with that. That's a nice thing about business and payment terms. You can say, yeah, let's use the strategy, pay me half up front, half at the end. Or if you choose to retain me after, I'll credit all of it or half of it or whatever it is. Some people actually choose to kick off a relationship with a strategy because it's also very efficient, right? You get to basically spend a few hours with the team and get all the information that you need, and it's going to make your job a lot easier rather than discovering all these things over a 30-day period. So there's a lot of value to those standalone items, from making sure that you're working with the right clients, that they have a big enough problem, that you have a way to get all the information that you need, and really filter out for the right relationships.
Yes. Let's talk about some do's and don'ts for menus, because there is, it's all with all these things. It's an art and a science. What are some do's?
Once you're focused on a niche, I would definitely do menu items that are tied into specific pain points that resonate, right? So if you're, in law firms and AI is a big deal for them because it's a lot of cost-saving opportunities, that go ahead and develop like an AI, agent strategy for law firms, because that's what you do. We had somebody in healthcare specific like type of EMR system, and they wanted to transition out of it. So he could develop a specific strategy for that transitioning, or maybe you do cloud transition or cyber. But develop basically menu items that are going to resonate with your niche. Another one I recommend is have upside incentives. Like for me at this point in my career, all of my agreements with new clients come with upside. And I tell them this is the cash and this is the performance model. This is when this thing happens. If we release things, faster than they expect, or if the business hits a certain milestone because we're developing a product that's supposed to bring more revenue, just have an upside model ready in your menu. Another one is just have other revenue streams. So if you can staff, if you want to do application delivery, some of you have MSPs, if you want to do all these things, have those menu items. I also like other value props that people don't think about. So we have some people, they have the strategy, they have the engage, they have the advisory, but then they also add a board member service for like $10,000 a quarter. Right, so they come into board meetings and they also service that, or they do pitch help and different architecture services. So just add more things that the more offers you add, the more ways people can interact with you and pay you money. And the more specific they are to your niche, the more valuable those offers are. And people are just going to say, okay, yeah, give me all three. And then you can also play with pricing. And other payment opportunities or payment positioning.
Yeah, that's so great. I mean, how many times have we sat down at a restaurant, we see this great looking menu, and I'm like, yes, I want all those things.
Yes, all the things, just all the desserts, please.
And yeah, one of all of them. And the same thing happens with prospects. If you're talking to somebody and they really have rapport with you, and you've got a great looking menu that is designed and optimized for the things that are valuable to them, that are exciting and relevant to them, why wouldn't they say yes to all of them? Let's talk about some don'ts. What are some ways that you should not use a menu?
We highly recommend, again, don't use the word hours, don't use the word effort. So don't add to your menu item like, oh, this is gonna give you 5 hours of my time a week or a month. Just don't say that. Just don't train your client to think about you in terms of effort. So we really recommend not saying it and certainly not writing it or publishing it. The other thing is not publishing the menu. The menu, what happens if you publish a menu, so meaning you actually showcase your pricing on the website or a PDF or an email, you're letting marketing do sales for you. And that's not a good idea. You really want to do sales, meaning in the context of discovery, in the context of a pain or a problem, you position the solution so you can solve it. And if somebody just sees 3,000 or 10,000 and they're like automatically, oh, that's too expensive or I can't afford it. Well, it's not they weren't sold, right? And they weren't sold, meaning you didn't help them contextualize your value with their problem. So we really think you shouldn't do that. You can publish the menu in terms of service offerings, but don't publish the pricing, because it's going to give you more flexibility and it's going to make sure that the sales conversations happen in a sales context and not in a marketing context.
Ooh, I would love, as we wrap this one, let's talk about how to put that into practice, because you mentioned something that I want to double click on, which is talking about the value you're providing and positioning the price appropriately so that you're overcoming that objection before it even comes up. And there's a really elegant conversation that you teach our CTOs.
So for basic discovery, and you can do this if you're just like randomly seeing a person in an elevator, or you're actually in a proper scheduled meeting, to figure out what are their pains. So we call it the what and why conversation, which is you're kind of oscillating, going back and forth. For the engineers, it's a recursive function, right? So what are you trying to do? Why are you trying to do it? You're kind of just going back and forth between those two questions. So what are you trying to do gives you a sense of their goals. What are they trying to accomplish? Why are you trying to do gives you a sense of their motivation. Are they emotionally in tune? Now, usually what happens, it starts with something like, what are you trying to do? I want to build an app. And then you ask why? Well, because our customers are looking for it, and we only have a website. Okay, why does it matter? Because we want to increase customer satisfaction, and I think it's gonna save us money on customer service. Oh, how much money on customer service? And like, oh, I think it's $500,000 a year. Okay, why does that matter? Well, I want to sell the company in 3 years. I'm like, oh, what do you want to sell the company for? Well, I really hope we can sell it for 10 million. And maybe if we do this, we can sell it for 15. I'm like, why do you want to sell it for 10 or 15? Well, I really want to retire. and I want to move on to my next business. Once you go and you get them to speak in that vision level, a few things are happening. One, you're talking to them in the context of their level and how they're thinking about their business, rather than the context of like problems or technology solutions or blocking and tackling, right? Which is, they don't care about technology. They just know they need technology to make their vision come true. The second thing, by the time you're coming in with your pricing, then it's in the context of 7-figure, 8-figure conversations, if not 9-figure conversations. So if I manage to get somebody in a conversation kind of saying, oh, okay, what do you want to sell the company for? Why do you want to sell it? When do you want to sell it? And so on. And then I'm like, yeah, I can totally solve this problem for 150, 180 a year. And then my number, even though it's a great retainer, seems so small relative to this mind space we were just exploring a few minutes ago, then, and the conversation is oriented around value, and I builded a trusted, appearance with my prospect that I'm thinking at their level, caring about their problems, and I'm there to solve all the how to make that happen on the technology side.
What I love about this is it's like the 5 whys in personal development. You keep asking why. And after the 5th or the 6th time, you uncover the real reason. And that's this exercise applied to a business conversation and a relationship building conversation. And with the layer and nuance of, all right, you're also applying some pricing psychology, some sales psychology. So I just love it. And thank you as always, Lior, for sharing these nuggets here. That wraps up another episode of the CTOX podcast. We hope today's conversation gave you the tools and inspiration to advance your journey as a fractional CTO.
And don't forget, if you want more in-depth support or to connect with our community of fellow fractional CTOs, visit us at ctox.com.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the CTOX podcast.